Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Technical Critic, and I have just finished reading Divergent. Do I have the book with me? No, because I did not buy it. And with very, very good reason. This is just another one of those teenage drama series, and I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. This, to me, signals the death of writing, just as a constructive medium. I had heard of factory-made books that were created via the formula. Basically what happened is sometime in the early 2000s, they worked at that. For a book to be successful, it needs to have certain parameters that allows it to catch a specific curve and cause a trend. And this book, Divergent, is just... The Hunger Games started the trend of the teen girl disaster story, I guess is what you would call it. I don't know. But this goes back even farther to all the way back to Stephanie Myers, who really started this writing trend. Although, to be honest, this was predicted long, long ago by a man who wrote a small series of books. I have them right up here. Give me a second. For any of you who know who Roald Dahl is, he wrote primarily children's books, but he's also known as the most macabre man to ever grace literature. Why, I don't know. His stuff isn't really that bad, but his adult series of novels really deals with pain and gruesomeness and stuff on a degree that you really shouldn't have to talk about. Like, let's not talk about it. But one of his stories, called the Great Grammatizator. Yes, the Great Grammatizator. Basically was the idea that in order for companies to make money, they invented a machine that when you just hit a button and said, okay, I want this kind of book, this kind of book, this kind of book, or this kind of book, you basically just hit a button and it would write the entire thing just based on the plots, and it would just vary the story ever so slightly. And guess what? Divergent is just a variation. As a matter of fact, I get the feeling that this book was written specifically for it to be made into a movie. And the reason I say that is this. In reading the book, there are certain details that you gather, and I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything because if you just read the back cover blurb, this is what you get. There are 5 factions in this particular post-apocalyptic Chicago. There's Amity, which wants peace. There's Erudite, which seeks knowledge. There's Abnegation, which seeks selflessness towards others. There's Candor, which is honesty. And there's Dauntless, which is supposed to be bravery. Each of them is supposed to represent a different aspect that's supposed to make this post-apocalyptic human society not collapse. So, well, where was I going with this? Oh yes, if they had just taken the main character and instead of sticking her into the Dauntless, where all the actiony stuff takes place, if they had reversed the roles and stuck her into any other camp, Abnegation, even with the fact that you had each and every single faction participating in this conspiracy, and I'm ruining the book at this point, but I don't care because it's a terrible book. Even though every factor was essentially participating in this conspiracy, if you had stuck her in any other, if you had stuck baby Katniss in any other of these five nations, if she'd been Erudite or Candor or Amity, or even if she'd stuck in, well, you can't really stick her in Abnegation, there's reasons for that. But if you had stuck her in any of these other ones, they literally could not have made a movie out of this because it would have bored everyone to death. To death. The story is pure... This is a love story wrapped in a post-apocalyptic teenage drama. It's specifically built for teenage girls who've never gone through any particular kind of relationship yet. But just the way they presented some of the topics like sex or friendship or all this nonsense, it's just bad writing. I was laughing at the romance scenes over, like there were some actual moments I said, wow, that's actually pretty good. But other than that, oh man, it feels like I'm reading a novelization of a movie. And quite frankly, if I go and watch the movie and they cut a whole bunch of stuff out, the movie is just going to be terrible. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know where writing is going anymore. The lady at the bookstore, Michelle, she's a very nice girl. She pointed me to this other book series. It's called The Red Something. I think it's The Red Tattoo. And basically, it's a better version of the same thing. When I slammed the book shut and put it back on the shelf, a look of heartbreak in her eyes. Oh, Lord. So, what made this book terrible? If I was to go through it, well, first of all, this book is not written for me. This book is written for the mass consumption by girls from the age of 11 to 17, maybe 18, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the tipping point is there, especially for female pseudo-porn. Which this book really did feel like. At points I felt like I was reading pornography just with some of the descriptions. And I've read erotic stories. I mean, for anyone who's watched TP Reads Aloud, believe me, we've read erotic stories. We know what illusion is. or just straight up saying it. But this, wow, the illusion in this story to feelings is just so paper thin. I guess if a boy throws knives at you, and is totally badass about it, you're supposed to fall in love with him? I don't know. The fact that they were both divergents in the end, and that there's a degree of is it possible to have degrees of, I don't know. The ending of the book kind of started to get sloppy. It was just, oh. We should start at the beginning. So, the book starts out with, oh God, what's her name? Beatrice. Yes, Beatrice. The book starts out with Beatrice getting her hair cut by her mom. And then it's this whole thing. They just throw you in. They don't explain anything. You're supposed to figure all this out on your own. They don't tell you what the apocalypse was that happened. They don't tell you why it happened. They don't tell you anything. You're just supposed to assume that the world is a wasteland except for what is now Chicago. So they're talking about how they've got to pick factions, and that how the factions are how they divided up society. So, and they do it via some kind of weird pseudo aptitude test where they like stick you in a virtual reality via serum. It's kind of like if the Matrix came in vial form. So basically, they stick you in a chair. They stick drugs into you. And this is supposed to play tricks on your brain, and then they read your brainwaves, and the computer interprets it and pumps out an image showing exactly what's going on in your brain. So she gets to pick a knife or a cheese or something like that, and then there's this dog, and then like something goes wrong with her test, so she can't be. So she's declared this thing called Divergent, which is not explained until about halfway through the book, and it's like a single sentence of explanation that apparently a Divergent can basically manipulate the computer simulation. So basically a Divergent is someone who has good control over their own brain. So I guess it's someone with an imagination and a good sense of self. I mean, other than that, I don't see it. And yeah, after that, let's see. It's so basically she picks the action faction. I call them the action faction because let's face it, if she picked, as soon as I read that part, I said to myself, "Oh God, this is literally so that this is literally so that a movie can be made out of this book." Don't get me wrong. Everything in this book is purely to the service of making it into a movie. As I was reading it, I felt like I was watching a movie and I didn't like it. Also, we get like a glanced over explanation of what the other factions are supposed to do. Like, we get an in-depth detail of abnegation, that they essentially run the government, that they're supposed to be completely selfless, that they're supposed to manage everything, blah, 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 blah. Erudite, the people who are supposed to be evil. You get a small amount of information that, one, they're evil because they want more say in the government, and that, yeah, nothing else. Nothing else. Just that they pursue knowledge and that knowledge makes people greedy for power, whatever. And then there's Candor, who they tell the truth. That's it. That's their shtick. Nothing about what they do. They just tell the truth. Then there's Amity. They just keep things peaceful. Like, you hear absolutely nothing about them. Absolutely nothing. The only time you learn anything about the peaceful people is when they're doing a patrol of the border fence. And here's something that's surprising. Okay, so you've trained a group of soldiers, right? And they're supposed to guard from whatever monsters lurk outside. But you've got a border fence, and then all the farms that feed your city, like, just scattered around, right? There's just nothing but farms growing things like corn and fruit and apples and whatever, right? So, would it not make sense to guard the farms? I mean, like, what? Does Amity not get protection? I mean, what exactly is the purpose of this particular police force? You never see, the entire time that either the training is going on, or they're talking to their instructors, or they're doing anything, you never hear anything about what they're actually supposed to be doing, except there's just this vague idea that they're supposed to guard against something. Just something. Which you think they'd have a clear idea of. I mean, even the most rudimentary police force knows, okay, we're going to be trying to stop people from committing crimes. Crimes like what? Crimes like petty theft, major robbery, rape, murder. You know, the basics of human society. But, oh, here's a great thing. You find out, maybe like 2/3 of the way in, that there hasn't been a murder in their society for like decades. Like 3 decades there hasn't been a murder in their society or something like that. It's like, okay, why do you have police then? What's, if the faction system is working, what's the point of having police? I don't. And then there's this entire thing about being factionless. Like, I just don't get it. It's not explained very well. I mean, apparently the factionless are these people who basically get kicked out of whatever faction they choose. So basically, which it seems redundant. If you choose a faction, then that faction should be responsible for the people who choose to go there, right? And then to either A, take care of them, or B, see to that they're worthy to participate in their society, I guess. And if they're not worthy to participate in their society, then you should give them a second chance to go and pick something, right? I mean, right? It doesn't make any sense as to why there should be factionless. By all logic, the creation of factions should make nobody factionless. The love story in this is pretty okay, though. It uses lots of lewd and descriptive words, and oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. It was basically reading softcore pornography, porn for women. Is what I guess I would, or young ladies is what I would guess I would describe it as. Oh, no. This is not a good story. This is a mediocre story at best. It is a perfect representation of the factory system of making books. And I don't like it. I think it needs to stop. We need to go back to creative person sits with a keyboard or a typewriter or a pen and a piece of paper and writes down something interesting that might then spawn a book. Because that's what a book is. A book is, I'm English majors, come here. A book is not just words on a page describing events. A book is a way that a creative person, and this goes for anything, be it a work of art, a piece of music, a book, a video game, a movie. It's a way of taking the crazy that's in here, the eccentric and the nonstop, that's the nonstop chatter that goes on in here, and putting it in a form that allows you to organize it, right? It's a way of organizing the data that we cannot organize in here outside of our head, and organize and getting the imagination out so that we can move on to other things. It's one of the many problems creative people have. Their brains never turn off. And lots of them have something called insomnia. So that's been my review. I don't like it. I don't think people should read it. I mean, listen, there are love stories, right? Good love stories. Go back 100 years, we've got love stories. And the thing is, a lot of them hold up today. I mean, I know that we've got to continue to create new material for a newer generation to be able to pick up and read and relate to, etc. But there's a good way to do it, there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And the way that they're doing it now with this creation of just the mass production of teen dreck fiction is the wrong way to do it. Commission concise good stories. I know no one sets out to make a bad story, but this is purely and simply profiteering from a publishing standpoint. This is publishers trying to profiteer off of the trends that were set back in the early 2000s, and it's ruining the genre of fiction. There's a reason why people are calling out fiction is dead. It's because no good fiction is being produced. Not no new fiction, no good fiction is being produced. And it's because of this idea that if you just fit it to a specific mold, everybody's going to like it. It's the scientification and the sterilization of a creative medium, and it should not be happening. We as the consumers should not be allowing this. Say you want your books created creatively. You want someone to sit down and put a lot of thought into what's going on, to make poignant moments, and to not just do storylines that service a particular plot that's in the story. All the subplots should wrap together to service the main plot in a way that is interesting to each and every subplot. Otherwise, it's just a means to carry the story forward. And if you're just carrying the story forward without developing anything, well, that's all I have to say. This was my first book review. Oh well, for those of you who heard about TP Reads Aloud, I'm going to link that in the description. You can watch the two of us embarrass ourselves. So like, dislike, favorite, subscribe. Most importantly, comment. Comment on what you think about the Divergent book. I am not reading the second one. I have absolutely no interest in reading Insurgents, because I'm hoping to God that the movie fails in theaters, because if it doesn't, then I have to read that book so I could do the bloody review of that movie. I have no interest in knowing what happens to the characters. her parents. I'm not going to spoil that for anyone who's reading the book. If you like this book, get in the comments and defend it, because God knows I have no sympathy whatsoever for this story. But get in the comments and defend it. I have only the vaguest curiosity of what the rest of the story is, and I'm pretty sure if I wait long enough, I'm gonna lose that curiosity. So yeah, that's how I feel. It's from a critical standpoint. It's put together. It's put together simply in the service of a love story, and as a modern love story, I'm pretty sure we can do a lot better than this. Can we have a strong female protagonist that doesn't need to fall in love? Or is the love story just in service to fangirls? In the comments, go. Explain this to me, because I don't get it. I do not get it.